Hi students, hope all of you are doing well. Today we are going to start with the module 5. The module 5 mainly it deals with two important topics. They are message passing and the deadlock. So in the syllabus, he has included the topics such as overview of message passing. We are going to discuss about what exactly message passing and how it can be implemented. Then we discuss about mailboxes, deadlocks, deadlocks in resource allocation, handling the deadlocks, and we discuss about how to detect the deadlock and how to prevent the deadlocks. These are some of the topics we are going to discuss in the module 5. So in today's class, first we are going to start with message passing. First, we go through message passing and implementation of message passing and mailboxes. Then afterwards, students will discuss about the topic called deadlocks. Okay, first, as I told, we start with message passing. Students, message passing, basically it is a technique used for exchange of messages between the processes. The two processes, they can exchange message or exchange information by means of message passing. So simply message passing, it's a technique which is used to exchange information between the two processes. Okay, students, here we have an example for message passing. We have two processes, say process PI and process PJ. Here process PI, it is sending the message, and process PJ, it is going to receive the message. Students, to send the message, we use a simple instruction or system call called send. And on the other hand, to receive the message, we have a system call with name receive. We have two important instructions here, send and receive. Send simply it is used to send a message, and receive to receive the message from other process. Okay, here if you look at the example, we have process PI, which will make use of send instruction, and we have a process PJ, which will make use of the receive instruction. So send, the general syntax for send instruction is as shown here. You have to use send. Then after that, you have to specify name of the destination process. That is, you have to specify name of the process to which you want to send the message. So in this example, as the process PI want to send the message to the process PJ, we have written send PJ, comma. Then after that, we are supposed to specify the message which is to be transferred. On the other hand, the process PJ will make use of receive instruction, and the general format for using receive instruction is first we have to write receive. Then after that, we need to specify name of the process by which the message is expected. And we also write the location where the message is to be stored. That is, we specify message area. So here message area is nothing but the buffer where the received message is to be stored. So this is generally how do we use send and receive instructions. Students, time being, you remember the send instruction can be used as send, name of the destination process, and the message which is to be sent. And the receive should be used as receive, name of the receiver process, name of the sender process, and the message area where the received message is to be stored. Okay, here while implementing this message passing, there will be a lot of issues. But here author is specifying three important issues while implementing the message passing. The three issues are naming of the processes, methods for transferring the messages, and the kernel responsibilities. The naming of the process is an issue which deals with whether the processes which want to communicate the message, whether they need to know ID of each other or not. The naming of the process is an issue which deals with whether the name of sender and receiver process, whether they should be explicitly specified in the send and receive instructions. Then we have the second issue, which deals with methods for transferring of the messages. So actually here the issue is related with the protocols. Protocols, students, as you know, it is simply a set of rules to be followed for communication purpose. Here the issue is what type of protocols are supposed to be used for exchanging of information between the two processes. So actually we have two set of protocols, blocking protocol and non-blocking protocol. So this issue deals with which type of protocol is to be used for exchange of information. Then the third issue is kernel responsibilities. This issue deals with the responsibility of the operating system to implement message passing, so that the operating system has to take care of buffering of messages. It has to take care of delivery of message to the destination process, and it has to take care of blocking and activation processes depending on the protocols which are used in the message passing. So remember, students, we have totally three issues to be dealt while implementing the message passing. They are naming of the processes, that is the issue is whether the name of the sender and receiver processes need to be specified explicitly in send and receive instructions, or if it is to be specified, or if it is to be known, how it should be informed, means how the sender process should come to know about name of the receiver process, and how the receiver process should come to know the name of sender process, right? Then method for transferring messages, it includes the issue related with the type of the protocol to be used, whether the protocol should be a blocking protocol or a non-blocking protocol. And kernel responsibilities, it depends on the type of the operating system and the method used for implementing the message passing. So depending on the method used, the kernel should take some of the responsibilities, such as buffering of the messages, delivery of the message to the receiver process, and blocking and activation of the processes depending on the protocol used for message passing. Okay, we'll discuss these related issues one by one with some of the interesting topics, students. Okay, first we are going to start with direct and indirect naming. Students, as we have seen, the first issue is naming of the sender and the receiver processes. Here we have two conventions for naming of the processes, that is direct naming and indirect naming. So direct naming, it is a convention in which both the sender and receiver processes, they need to know name of each other. Direct naming, it's a convention where both the sender process and receiver process, they must know name of each other. This convention, it is also referred to as symmetric naming. Here, in case of direct naming, the send and the receive instructions should be of this format. Just look at the syntax. We are supposed to use send. We must have to specify name of the destination process and the message to be transferred in the send instruction. The send instruction must specify name of the destination process along with the message to be transferred. And the receive instruction should specify name of the source process with the message area where the message is to be stored. And we have indirect naming. So in the indirect naming, the receiver process need not to specify name of the sender process. Students, indirect naming, it is a convention in which the receiver process need not to specify the name of the sender process. Remember, this convention it is also referred to as asymmetric naming. So in this case, the send instruction will have the same syntax as that of direct naming, but however, receive will change. So in the receive instruction, simply we specify message area. We won't specify name of the source process in the receive instruction. Remember students, in the indirect naming, it is a convention where a receiver process need not to specify name of the sender process. So actually in server-based applications, we are going to use the convention of indirect naming. Here, the server need not to know name of the sender process. Name of the sender process need not to be known by the server process. The server process simply can make use of receive and message area. So depending on request or depending on the message sent by the sender process, the receiver process can make suitable reply. So this is how the indirect naming works out. Students, as we discussed, we have protocols for message passing. Here, basically, we have two important protocols called blocking protocol and non-blocking protocols. So in the blocking protocol, the sender process is blocked till the delivery of the message to the destination. Blocking protocol is one where the sender process is blocked till the delivery of the message to the destination. The meaning is that, students, the statements followed by the send instructions, they are executed only after delivery of that message to the destination process. This blocking protocol, it guarantees the delivery of message to the destination. Okay, students, here we have an example. We have a process PI. We have a process PI, which is going to send a message to process PJ and a message to process PK. We have a process PI in which we have send instructions for process PJ and PK. Okay, in case if you have a blocking protocol, what will happen is after execution of this send PJ, this process PI is blocked. The process PI is blocked till delivery of this message to the process PJ. Only when the message is delivered to the process PJ, the instructions followed by this send instructions can be executed. Till that, all the instructions followed by this first send instruction, they are blocked. That's how it is referred to as a blocking protocol. However, in non-blocking protocol, the sender process is allowed to continue its execution without bothering about whether the message is delivered or not. Students, non-blocking protocol is one in which the sender process will not wait. It is allowed to continue execution of its next instructions without bothering about whether the message is delivered or not. Okay, just consider the same example. Consider the same example, process PI with send instructions, two send instructions. Okay, here what happens is simply the send instruction is executed and immediately after execution of send instruction, the process PI is allowed to execute the instructions followed by the send. Here process PI will not wait till delivery of this message. Without bothering about whether the message is delivered or not, the instructions followed by this first send are allowed to execute. So under such situations, that is in case of non-blocking protocols, the operating system should take the responsibility of delivery of message. The operating system, what it does is, when the send instruction is executed in the non-blocking protocol, the message sent by the process, it is going to store in the buffers. The operating system is going to store all the messages which are sent by the sender process in the buffers. The moment when the corresponding receive statements are executed by the receiver processes, those messages, they are delivered by the operating system. The idea is like this, students. The sender is simply going to send the message and will continue its execution. But by that time, suppose if the receiver process has not executed receive instruction, those messages will be buffered by the operating system. And the moment when the receiver will execute receive instruction, the messages from the buffer, they are delivered to the receiver process. This is how the non-blocking protocol is going to work. Remember, students, in the blocking protocol, the sender is blocked till delivery of the message to the destination. Here, it guarantees the delivery of message before execution of the send. But however, in case of non-blocking protocol, the sender process is simply going to execute the send, and it is allowed to execute the instructions followed by the send without worrying about whether the message is delivered or not. In such situation, it becomes responsibility of the operating system to buffer the message and deliver these messages when the corresponding receive instructions are executed in the receiver processes. Students, this is all about blocking and non-blocking protocols. Remember, students, the convention of naming, that is symmetric and asymmetric naming, and the delivery protocols, blocking and non-blocking protocols. They are very important from examination point of view. You may expect a question like this: what is direct naming and indirect naming? Explain with examples. Or you may get question as explain the message delivery protocols, that is blocking and non-blocking protocols. They are very simple concepts. Try to understand and try to answer accordingly. Okay, thank you very much, students. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you very much.